Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan has been both confirmed and is ramping up tensions between the dragon and this country. So we'll talk just a bit about that. And even Al Jazeera is now coming out and saying, hey, tone it down just a little bit. So we'll go over some of that. In other news, an alleged drone strike on an Al-Qaeda leader from the September 11th attacks apparently happens in Kabul. Forgive me if I have a lot of questions. But that's what the news is reporting, so we'll be talking about that and what that means over that. Jon Stewart and Jack Posobiec bury the hatchet over a fight that they had over the burn pit bill. Perhaps Jon Stewart has realized that no, there is way more than just payments to veterans in this bill, but we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. And Kevin Costner is seen in a t-shirt saying, "I back Liz Cheney." Probably a really good reason for you to not back Liz Cheney. It is going to be all this and more. You're my favorite breakfast tacos. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got a not as packed as we've usually had show today, but there's still a lot to go over, so we're going to get into it. Nancy Pelosi heading over to Taiwan. That has been confirmed. She's actually going. I know yesterday when we talked about this, that was still up in the air, but no, it's confirmed. She's going to go do this. And yeah, China says they're going to make good on their threat. Will they do it? I have no idea, but they claim that they're going to make good on their threat, and if they see her in Taiwanese airspace, that's a violation of the One China policy, and they're going to go shoot her down. I have questions. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's a lot of bluster, but I guess we'll see what happens. Hey, could you imagine if the president went over there? But I don't know. We might be at war by the end of the day. With China. Who knows? But we will see what happens with that over on Contemporary. Plus, of course, we'll be talking about the Al-Qaeda leader that I don't believe. We'll be talking about Manchin. We'll be talking about Kevin Costner. Guy Reffitt ordered to serve 7 years because, hey, we had to have somebody serve longer than the token black dude, right? So we'll be going over that. And we'll talk about one of the MSNBC guests talking about Herschel Walker, too, over here on Contemporary. But before we get started, make sure you guys go check out The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Porch Boys. Go check out all of this great programming. It's going to be a great time. They are all great friends to lifestyle culture and a general sense of by the common man for the common man. I do strongly encourage you to go check them out. Porch Boys on their regular time today. Daily Ignoramus out on the road, so I don't know when we're going to be hearing from him in the near future. I know we didn't wind up seeing him yesterday, so we will continue to monitor that situation and see where that goes, but he is pursuing a music career over a news career as well, so do keep that in mind, and we do support him on this latest part of his life journey. So also check out Breakdown with Breckenhoff and The R-Rated Conservative as well. Go check out Tweets by Britt and KTZed. KTZed coming up with another true crime podcast that she'll be coming up and live streaming up in the near future. Apparently this one is close to home for her, so go watch for that. Otherwise, let's get into the main news of the day, and we start, as we always do, with finance. The Dow coming just slightly down yesterday to 32,798.40. That is down about 42 points throughout the day yesterday, and it was on a very, very big whipsaw pattern. It came up, it dropped back down, it came back up again, and it dropped back down at the end of the day, but only slightly. The futures are looking like they're going to be down because of the thought of possible tensions and war with China. And one thing to pay attention to with China that's not so much with Russia. As much as they tried to gaslight you and say that the war with Russia was going to mean that $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 gas, we really don't get a lot from Russia. In fact, honestly, as much as I hate to say it because I'm not a big fan of Kiev or Ukraine, we were more dependent on Ukraine than Russia as far as our day-to-day life, and that is in the grains and the breads that we consume, and all the carbs, the wonderful, yummy carbs that we eat so much in our society. As far as Russia, we don't really have a stake in any of their products, but China, hey, you walk down that Walmart shelf and pick up 10 random items, and 8 of them, at least, will have Made in China stamped on the bottom, which means that is another bar to our supply chain, that is another boon to inflation. Not so much on the fuel, but another agreement of why we should be heading back up here. And I should probably have the chart up here if I'm going to talk about the chart. Huh? Wouldn't you like that? To see the news? Like we do every day? So there's going to be some stuff to watch here. There's going to be some stuff to see, definitely, as we go into finance. And our wartime footing is going to affect what we see with that. Looking in at the Bitcoin. Over today, Bitcoin is down 404.10 to 22,869.70. Let's drag that out to 5 days and see some of what it did yesterday. A little bit of a seesaw in a jump pattern coming back out of here. It jumped up and then it dropped down below where it was, and then it jumped up again and bringing it back way down below to 22,869.70. Something to continue to watch as people start to wonder, hey, what are we actually going to do? Are we going to be okay, or are we going to start seeing some problems? It's definitely something to pay attention to, and we will continue to watch the Bitcoin as we go. Looking at the gas. Well, John Cooper saying that gas has dropped for 44 days straight is somewhat in the right again, because we did get a couple gas stations that dropped a penny around the Madison area. The BP in Madison proper on Packers Avenue, the BP in Mill Pond in Madison proper on, and the Costco in Middleton all down to $3.65. Everyone else remains at $3.66. So, and it does depend definitely on where you are. I use the local gas price. Well, not the local for me, because if this was local for me, it would say Janesville on it. But I'm not really that comfortable with letting you guys know exactly where I live just yet. But this is close enough, and this is a huge market for us to come back and watch. Your prices may vary. Some prices may be going up slightly. Most of them are going to be coming back down on and off throughout the day, and throughout the week, depending on which station you're at. But no, they held steady for $3.66 for quite a while here, and now we're getting another little penny drop. So a little bit more reprieve coming for you. Let's get another $1 off of there. Yeah, like that's going to happen. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow futures drop as Pelosi heads to Taiwan. Uber surges on strong sales, from Scott Latonin. The Dow futures dropped Tuesday on rising U.S.-China tensions as House Speaker Pelosi heads to Taiwan. Machinery giant Caterpillar slid on weak revenue results, which is really shocking given all the money we got into infrastructure that was supposed to save Caterpillar. It's kind of telling. All this money that they're trying to pump into infrastructure, that should be one of the big ones. Now, there's competition. Hyundai and Volvo Hyundai and Volvo. This is a family-friendly show, so we're not going to talk about the other one. Hyundai and Volvo are big competitors off of this, but I can't see Caterpillar, one of the best known names in heavy equipment, being on the downswing with this, unless Hyundai and Volvo are slashing their prices left and right. On better than expected sales, let's see. While Uber stock surged more than 14% on better than expected sales and being cash flow positive for the first time. Arista Networks, Caterpillar, CF Industries, Devon Energy, Diamondback Energy, Mosaic, and Uber Technologies were key earnings movers on Tuesday. Arista Networks jumped 5% in pre-market trade on strong Q2 results. Caterpillar slid more than 3%. CF stock dropped more than 2%. Devon shares inched lower. Diamondback slipped less than 1%. And Mosaic was down nearly 3%. Tesla traded down fraction early on Tuesday. Elsewhere, Dow Jones tech leader Apple and Microsoft were slightly lower before today's stock market open. In the strengthening stock market environment, Dow Jones stocks Chevron and United Health, as well as Cheniere Energy, ExxonMobil, Quanta Services, Ulta Beauty, and Vertex Pharmaceuticals are among the stocks to watch. Keep in mind that ongoing stock market volatility is a reason to stay more conservative despite recent signs of strength. These are not recent signs of strength. These are recent signs of Fed policy that's affecting the billionaire class, but still keeping you out of the market. That is going to come back to bite you investors in the butt. This is not strength. Quanta, United Health, and Vertex are on the IBD leaderboard. Chevron and Exxon were featured in this week's Stocks Near a Buy Zone column. Exxon was Friday's IBD stock of the day. Yeah, gas dropped $1, and people are starting to come back and hoard. Of course Exxon's going to be stock of the day. On the futures, ahead of Tuesday's open, Dow futures lost 0.5% and the S&P dropped 0.6%. The Nasdaq futures fell 0.8% versus fair value. Remember, overnight action at Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Among ETFs, the Nasdaq tracker, QQQ Trust, lost 0.8%, and the SPDR S&P 500 ETF tracking the S&P and the Dow fell 0.6%. The 10-year Treasury yield ticked lower to 2.56 Tuesday morning, threatening to fall for a sixth straight session. The 10-year yield is at its lowest level since early April. Meanwhile, U.S. oil prices rebounded as West Texas Intermediate rose a fraction to above $94 a barrel. Speaker Pelosi will arrive in Taiwan on Tuesday and will meet with Taiwanese government officials. Pelosi will become the first House Speaker to visit Taiwan since '97. Beijing, which claims Taiwan as part of its territory, has warned Pelosi not to do so and has threatened to take action should her visit continue. Does anybody have any popcorn? Anybody? At all? I don't know, we'll continue to watch this. I want to grab another one on finance. These are actually a couple, but I might skip this one depending on the information in the first. Talking about a Fed official who's actually a Fed CEO in Minneapolis. Are we in a recession? It doesn't matter, Fed official says. I'm focused on the inflation data. From Cameron Albert Dietsch. If you're debating whether or not the U.S. is in a recession, you're asking the wrong question, according to a top Fed official. Whether we are technically in a recession or not doesn't change my analysis. Neil Kashkari, president of the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis, told CBS's Face the Nation on Sunday. I am focused on the inflation data. I'm focused on the wage data, and so far inflation continues to surprise us to the upside. Wages continue to grow, right, but they're not keeping pace with what the inflation is. Last month, U.S. inflation jumped to a 4-decade record high, rising 9.1% from a year ago. But that's based on core inflation, not real inflation, of course, because we changed the way we measure inflation. Honk honk. At the same time, the labor market remained strong. Non-farm payrolls increased by 372,000 last month, alongside a new national low unemployment rate of 3.6%. Yeah, give that a second for Ford to come back out and drop those 8,000 jobs they're threatening. On Thursday, the new Labor Department data showed signs of a job market cool down, with initial jobless claims hitting their highest level since mid-November. Still, Kashkari said the labor market's very, very, very strong. Funny, you didn't hear anything about the unemployment rate going up on Twitter. Typically, recessions demonstrate high job losses, high unemployment. Those are terrible for American families, and we're not seeing anything like that, he said. The problem, Kashkari said, is that even in a strong market, inflation is outpacing wage growth, giving many Americans a functional wage cut as living costs increase nationwide. Solving that problem by reducing inflation is the Federal Reserve's top goal right now, he added. Whether we're technically in a recession or not doesn't change the fact that the Federal Reserve has its own work to do, and we're committed to doing it, Kashkari said. That's right. Keep the American consumer out of the market, so the government can be the only one to spend the money. Aren't you excited for that? Oh, and the billionaires. Small business competitors, screw them. The Bureau of Economic Analysis reported on Thursday that the country's gross domestic product shrunk for the second straight quarter, often warning sign accompanying an economic recession. No, that's a change of the definition. That's newspeak. For Kashkari, that may actually be a good thing. The American people are suffering. It's harder for people to come back out and start a business, to buy a home, to buy their first home, to buy a car, to take out a loan, to deal with the fact that they can't afford to go to the damn the damn grocery store anymore. Yes, 2 quarters of shrinking GDP and raising the rates to sky-high levels. It's a good thing. Just say it enough times and you might believe it. These people. We definitely want to see a slowing of economic growth. Forget the people at the bottom of the economy, he said. We don't want to see the economy overheating. We would love it if we could transition to a sustainable economy without tipping the economy into a recession. We're already there. Oh, these people. Ugh. Doing so poses a significant challenge for Fed Kashkari. Acknowledged that economic slowdowns tend to be very difficult to control, especially if it's the central bank that's inducing the slowdown. Still, he said, the bank would do whatever is necessary to tame inflation. We're going to do everything we can to avoid a recession, but we are committed to bringing inflation down, and we're going to do what we need to do, Kashkari said. We're a long way from achieving an economy that is back at 2% inflation, and that's where we need to get to. Neil Kashkari, everyone. Screw the little guy. Let's just all go work for the billionaires. And then listen to the progressives tell us how much they hate the billionaires. Alright, I'm actually going to skip the Fox Business one. Let's get into the main news of the day. From CNN Politics. Pelosi's expected Taiwan visit risks creating greater instability between the US and China. This is an analysis. Op-ed. From Stephen Collinson. Neither the US or China is overt interest in their budding superpower rivalry, boiling over into the open military clashes despite soaring tensions ahead of the House Speaker Pelosi's expected visit to Taiwan. Kind of curious to see what this is, but let's read a little bit more first. And yet the showdown is over the issue that is more likely than any other to spark the US-China war. And Pelosi's trip, if it goes ahead, is almost certain to create greater instability in the relationship that would make future conflict more likely. Furious Chinese warnings that the California Democrat shouldn't go and Washington's vow not to be intimidated, meanwhile show how inflamed political forces in each nation could make it almost impossible to manage the world's most sensitive geopolitical duel. Hey, has anybody seen Hunter lately? A senior Taiwanese government official and U.S. official told CNN Monday that Pelosi was expected to make the first visit by a House Speaker to Taiwan in 25 years as part of her Asian tour. The longtime critic of the Chinese Communist government and his alleged human rights abuses would arrive in Taipei despite extraordinary warnings from Beijing of reprisals and consequences. Her position and new conditions created by the nationalistic rule of Chinese leader Xi Jinping, as well as Beijing's new assertiveness and military and strategic power, make this the most risky brinksmanship over Taiwan in decades. Given the signs that Pelosi is determined to visit, the question has now become how Beijing will respond. Most of its options, following a barrage of threats and propaganda that have raised expectations for its riposte, are quite alarming. Most analysts think that some kind of military show of force is likely, at a time when China has already been sending its jets to Taiwan's air defense identification zone in unprecedented numbers. While China's moves may not directly threaten U.S. naval forces in the area, they could add potentials for miscalculations and also raise the prospect of how Taiwan would respond to serious provocations. Okay, we're gonna watch the video now first, but my first question before I ask this. China does have a naval capability. It is not a very good one. That has been one of the sticking points that our friend Seawall, friend of the show, has brought up. When he claims up and down that China will never go back and invade Taiwan, which I think is false. I think they're going to. I think they're going to borrow naval capability from Russia, who does have a decent naval capability. Not like they had in the Cold War, but definitely a decent naval capability, especially to just go across the Strait of Taiwan. But they launched their aircraft carriers, and apparently this time they stayed afloat, which is an accomplishment for the Chinese. But let's actually see what's in this video. I'm not even sure. I didn't pre-watch this.
The latest fiery threats from Beijing reaching a fever pitch. Chinese military showing off its tactical might in a video posted online Monday with text reading, "It will bury incoming enemies." It comes as a high-level potential visit from the US defies warnings from Chinese officials. Sources telling CNN House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is expected to stop in Taiwan, which China regards as a breakaway province. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman warning Monday that Pelosi's visit would seriously undermine China's sovereignty and lead to grave consequences. Threats by China not to play with fire in a stop one White House official tells CNN is consistent with America's stance on Taiwan.
It is very much in keeping with our policy and consistent with our support to Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act. We shouldn't be, as a country, we shouldn't be intimidated by that rhetoric or those potential actions. This is an important trip for the speaker to be on, and we're going to do whatever we can to support her.
A senior Taiwanese government official and a U.S. official tell CNN that Pelosi's stop is expected to come as part of her tour of Asia, where she's leading a congressional delegation to the Indo-Pacific region, with visits to Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan. It's not clear when Pelosi will arrive in Taiwan. As of now, it's not on her public itinerary. For Taiwan, the timing is sensitive, as the Chinese president prepares to seek an unprecedented third term at his upcoming party Congress, where he aims to promote China's strength and stability. Now, caught between two superpowers, the world's only Chinese-speaking democracy prepares to defend itself from China's massive military. Something it's been doing for decades. Taiwanese troops training to defend this island in the event of a David and Goliath scenario, a fear stoked by Russia's war on Ukraine. But Taiwan has also been riding this rhetorical roller coaster for decades. As the latest US-China threats dominated global headlines, they were barely mentioned by the media in Taiwan. The island, with the most to lose, has lost interest.
I don't think they will retaliate. I don't worry about it. Mainland China is just threatening us. If they really decide to invade Taiwan, they can kill it within 2 to 3 days. They don't need to talk.
Is that dude wearing a Ukraine mask? Are you serious right now?
Much.
I'm not concerned. China has done the same thing many times, but exchanges between Taiwan and the US shouldn't be stopped because of this.
Many Taiwanese people perceive war with Beijing as a distant threat, a threat some observers warn could draw closer with each escalation. Xi Jinping is China's most powerful leader since Mao. His vow to bring Taiwan back to the mainland by force if necessary is backed by a massive military and growing nuclear arsenal. Will Ripley, CNN, Taipei, Taiwan.
So I do have questions about this. I definitely do. Number one is, why was that dude wearing a Ukraine mask in Taiwan? But we'll get past that for right now. One of the things to to watch as we come back and we see what's happening with this is, yes, China does have a massive military. If they do decide to go over there, there's going to be nary that Taiwan can do to stop them. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that there are more military members in China than there are Taiwanese citizens, period. But the problem always comes down to logistics. Let's bring up that corner of the world here and we'll see what's happening with that. Taiwan. So the scale is 50 miles. So for China to go from Quanzhou to Taichung City is approximately 100 miles. A little bit less, it looks like, but it's approximately there, 100 miles. You can't just walk across 100 miles of ocean. If China wanted to go back and take another shot at Hanoi, Laos, Burma, in Burma's weakness, maybe wanted to take some of this contested territory up in the top of India. Hell, if they wanted to go march into Afghanistan and show the US is how it's done, they'll come over into the Xinjiang region, overtake Tajikistan, probably claim this territory as their own. Looks like we've got disputed borders here already, and just go marching in 10 by 10 if they really want Kabul that badly. Same with Mongolia if they decide they want Mongolia again. And really honestly, if Mr. Kim decides that he is going to step out of line in Pyongyang, 10 by 10 down to Pyongyang, and there is no more North Korea. And the people of Seoul start to get really, really nervous. But these are all land conflicts. There's 100 miles of natural barrier that Taiwan enjoys at this point. And as far as we know, unless they go start borrowing subs from Russia, who's the last power in the region to have any sort of naval capability, I'm not sure how you overcome that. But we will continue to watch that and see what happens with that. The New York Times is pushing back against Nancy Pelosi, which I'm actually a little bit surprised about. Why Pelosi's visit to Taiwan is utterly reckless. Now, I don't know why. I don't think anybody knows why she's going other than to just... From Thomas L. Friedman. I have a... this is also from Knucklehead Road. This is also an op-ed. I have a lot of respect for House Speaker Pelosi, but if she does go ahead with a visit to Taiwan this week against President Biden's wishes, she will be doing something that's utterly reckless, dangerous, and irresponsible. Nothing good will come out of it. Taiwan will not be more secure, nor more prosperous as a result of this purely symbolic visit, and a lot of bad things could happen. These include a Chinese military response that could result in the US being plunged into indirect conflicts with nuclear-armed Russia and nuclear-armed China at the same time. Well, if they shoot down the plane, no, that will be a direct conflict. But the good news is those of you who have kids who survive going out to the war will come back to free college. And if you think our European allies who are facing an existential war with Russia over Ukraine will join us there, if there's a U.S. conflict with China over Taiwan triggered by this unnecessary visit, you're badly misreading the world. Let's start with the indirect conflict with Russia and how Pelosi's visit to Taiwan now looms over it. There are moments in international relations when you need to keep your eyes on the prize. Today, that prize is crystal clear. We must ensure a future We must ensure that Ukraine is able, at a minimum, to blunt and at a maximum reverse Vladimir Putin's unprovoked invasion, which if it succeeds will pose a direct threat to the stability of the whole European Union. Yeah, we've been barking up that tree for... Has it been 5 months now? Yeah. To help create the greatest possibility of Ukraine reversing Putin's invasion, Biden and his National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan held a series of very tough meetings with China's leadership, imploring Beijing not to enter the Ukraine conflict by providing military assistance to Russia. And particularly now, when Putin's arsenal has been diminished by 5 months of grinding war. Biden, according to a senior U.S. official, personally told President Xi Jinping that if China entered the war in Ukraine on Russia's side, Beijing would be risking access to its two most important export markets, the U.S. and the EU. China is one of the best countries in the world at manufacturing drones, which are precisely what Putin's troops need most right now. By all indications, U.S. officials tell me, China has responded by not providing military aid to Putin at a time when the U.S. and NATO have been giving Ukraine intelligence, support, and a significant number of advanced weapons that have done serious damage to the military of Russia, China's ostensible ally. Given all of that, why in the world would the Speaker of the House choose to visit Taiwan and deliberately provoke China now, becoming the most senior U.S. official to visit Taiwan since Newt Gingrich in '97, when China was far weaker economically and militarily? The timing could not be worse, dear reader. The Ukraine war is not over, and privately, U.S. officials are a lot more concerned about Ukraine's leadership than they are letting on. There's a deep mistrust between the White House and Volodymyr Zelensky, considerably more than has been reported. Well, see, the problem with that is that Volodymyr Zelensky has all the documents. And if Biden steps out of line or doesn't send another aid package, which we'll be talking about in a little bit later on in the show, then oops, oh, here's all the corruption that happened over in my country. And there is funny business going on with Kiev. On July 17th, Zelensky fired his country's prosecutor general and the leader of its domestic intelligence agency, the most significant shakeup in the government since Russian invasion in February. It would be the equivalent of Biden firing Merrick Garland and Bill Burns on the same day. Wow, I'm suddenly very, very happy. Aw, it was just a dream. Never mind. But I still have not seen any reporting that convincingly explains what that was all about. It's as if we don't want to look too closely under the hood in Kiev for fear of what corruption or antics we might see. When we have invested so much there, more on the dangers of that another day. Meanwhile, senior U.S. officials still believe that Putin is quite prepared to consider using a small nuclear weapon against Ukraine if he sees his army facing certain defeat. So, our op-ed writer here, his biggest concern about Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan is not directly having China shoot down Nancy Pelosi's plane, thus plunging us into a direct war. It's the fact that China might give drones to Russia so they could go and roll over the Ukraine. He doesn't give a damn about Taiwan or sending our boys off to a direct war. It's, oh, well, we might lose Ukraine over this. And yet still, as Arvold pointed out, no idea as to why Pelosi's going over there in the first place. From Reuters, Chinese warplanes buzz line dividing Taiwan Strait before expected Pelosi visit. from Yimu Li. House Speaker Pelosi was expected to arrive in Taipei later on Tuesday, rather. People briefed on the matter said as several Chinese warplanes flew close to the median line dividing the Taiwan Strait, a source told Reuters. China has repeatedly warned against Pelosi going to Taiwan, which it claims as its own, and the U.S. said on Monday that it would not be intimidated by the Chinese saber-rattling over the visit. In addition to Chinese planes flying close by the median line of the sensitive waterway on Tuesday morning, several Chinese warships had remained close to the unofficial dividing line since Monday, the source told Reuters. The source said that both Chinese warships and aircraft squeezed the median line on Tuesday, in an unusual move the person described as a very provocative. The person said the Chinese aircraft repeatedly conducted tactical moves of briefly touching the median line and circling back to the other side of the strait on Tuesday morning, while Taiwanese aircraft were on standby nearby. Is this kind of like every Next Generation episode that involves the neutral zone? Is that what I'm hearing here? Neither side's aircraft normally crossed the median line. Taiwan's defense ministry was not immediately able to respond to a request for comment. Taiwan's defense ministry had to reinforce its combat alertness level from Tuesday morning to Thursday noon, the island's official central news agency reported on Tuesday, citing unidentified sources. CNA said the alertness level of Taiwan's armed forces is roughly categorized into peacetime and wartime, and at the moment, the level stayed at peacetime, but would appropriately be adjusted according to the level of threat. So they're coming out there saying, you do this and you're going to be sorry. And even Russia is getting in on this. From Al Jazeera, Russia accuses U.S. of destabilization over Pelosi Taiwan trip. A spokeswoman for Russia's foreign ministry has accused Washington of destabilizing the world, amid reports of U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Pelosi is set to visit Taiwan despite vociferous opposition from Beijing. While there have been no official announcements, several Taiwanese media outlets reported late Monday, citing unnamed sources, that Pelosi would arrive in Taiwan on Tuesday. She would become the highest-ranking elected U.S. official to visit the island in more than 25 years if she makes the trip. But China has warned against Pelosi visiting the self-ruled island. Yeah, we've seen all this already. Let's see. Noting Beijing's ire over reportedly imminent visit, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova announced the U.S. accused the U.S. of undermining global security. Washington is bringing destabilization to the world. Not single settled conflict in recent decades, but many provoked ones, she said in a Telegram post on Tuesday. Where's the lie? Faced with sweeping Western condemnation and punishing economic sanctions over its Ukraine visit, Russia has sought closer ties with China. It's also expressed solidarity with Beijing over Taiwan. Russia's assault on Ukraine has heightened fears that Beijing might follow through on its threat to annex Taiwan, which rejects China's sovereignty claim and says that only its people can decide the island's future. Beijing has been steadily ratcheting up diplomatic and military pressure on the self-ruled democracy since Tsai Ing-wen was first elected in 2016. Meanwhile, the threats of retaliation over a visit by Pelosi have driven concerns of a deepening crisis amid continued tensions between the U.S. and China. Beijing views visits by U.S. officials to Taiwan as sending them an encouraging signal to the pro-independence camp on the island. Washington does not have official diplomatic ties with Taiwan, but is bound by U.S. law to provide the island with a means to defend itself. During a phone call last Thursday, Chinese President Xi Jinping warned his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden that Washington should abide by the One China principle, and those who play with fire will perish by it. And Biden hung up the phone and said, who was that guy? I think he was telling me he was a flamer. Oh, I have to get in front of the camera and tell him the story about the two men in the 60s that loved each other, man. I'm sorry, the 50s, not the 60s. All right, so that is Taiwan and China. Like I said, we might be at war with China by the end of the day. It's doubtful, but it does seem like all the sides are stacking up, getting ready to go into that direction if need be. So we will continue to watch this. We'll continue to see what happens and where we go from here. Let's talk about Ayman al-Zawahiri from Politico. This is Bin Laden and Zawahiri, who does not appear to be a young man already in this point. And do keep in mind that it's been 20 years since the September 11th attacks. And if I recall correctly, it's been 13 years since this man has been alive. From Alexander Ward, Paul McCleary, Nahal Tusi, and Lara Seligman. The U.S. killed al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in a drone strike over the weekend, an operation that included tracking him down through his family, a senior admin official confirmed to reporters. The strike, carried out by CIA-operated Air Force drone, occurred at 6:18 a.m. Sunday local time in Kabul. As the al-Qaeda leader stood in the balcony of his house, the official said. A person familiar with the operation separately said it took a few days to confirm the killing because the U.S. doesn't have many assets on the ground. Well, yeah, you turned over the country to people who hate you and gave them a whole bunch of weapons with which to kill your assets on the ground. Zawahiri never achieved the household name status of his predecessor, Osama bin Laden, but his killing is nonetheless a major win for the U.S. in the ongoing struggle against the Islamist terrorism, especially as the UN warns the terrorist group is outpacing its peers, like the Islamic State, as a long-term global threat. In a speech announcing the operation, President Biden said that he gave the final approval to kill Zawahiri, who was still planning attacks against the U.S. and its allied. Justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more, he added. Minutes before the address, a senior admin official spoke to reporters on how Zawahiri was hunted, found, and then killed. Let's see if we can get a Politico video to work today.
My fellow Americans, on Saturday, at my direction, the United States successfully concluded an airstrike in Kabul.
Nope. 10 seconds and then an infinite loop of reload. Just like every other political video. Or Politico, not political. Hold on. I got y'all.
My direction, the United States successfully concluded an airstrike in Kabul, Afghanistan that killed the emir of al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri. You know, Zawahiri was bin Laden's leader. He was with him the whole time. He was his number 2 man, his deputy at the time the terrorist attack of 9/11. He was deeply involved in the planning of 9/11. One of the most responsible for the attacks that murdered 2,977 people on American soil. For decades, he was the mastermind behind attacks against Americans, including the bombing of the USS Cole in 2000, which killed 17 American sailors and wounded dozens more. He played a key role in the bombing of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing 224 and wounding over 4,500 others. He carved a trail of murder and violence against American citizens, American service members, American diplomats, and American interests. And since the United States delivered justice to bin Laden 11 years ago, Zawahiri has been a leader of al-Qaeda, the leader. From hiding, he coordinated al-Qaeda's branches and all around the world, including setting priorities for providing operational guidance that called for and inspired attacks against U.S. targets. He made videos, including in recent weeks, calling for his followers to attack the United States and our allies. Now, justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more. People around the world no longer need to fear the vicious and determined killer. The United States continues to demonstrate our resolve and our capacity to defend the American people against those who seek to do us harm. You know, we make it clear again tonight that no matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you are a threat to our people, the United States will find you and take you out. After relentlessly seeking Zawahiri for years under Presidents Bush, Obama, and Trump, our intelligence community located Zawahiri earlier this year. He had moved to downtown Kabul to reunite with members of his immediate family. After carefully considering the clear and convincing evidence of his location, I authorized a precision strike that would remove him from the battlefield once and for all. This mission was carefully planned, rigorously minimized the risk of harm to other civilians. And 1 week ago, after being advised that the conditions were optimal, I gave the final approval to go get him. And the mission was a success. None of his family members were hurt, and there were no civilian casualties. I'm sharing this news with the American people now, after confirming the mission's total success through the painstaking work of our counterterrorism community and key allies and partners. My administration has kept congressional leaders informed as well. When I ended our military mission in Afghanistan almost a year ago, I made the decision that after 20 years of war, the United States no longer needed thousands of boots on the ground in Afghanistan to protect America from terrorists who seek to do us harm. And I made a promise to the American people that we continue to conduct effective counterterrorism operations in Afghanistan and beyond. We've done just that. In February, our forces conducted a daring mission in Syria that eliminated the emir of ISIS.
All right, and we get into the rambling part of the speech at this point, but when we sit back and we listen to Biden off of this, my first question is, why does this affect the American people? And did anybody actually know that this guy was the premier of al-Qaeda before today? Excuse me. My big question is this, did we go out and kill somebody with an Arabic sounding name and say, oh yeah, this was the leader of al-Qaeda now, and has been for 11 years, just totally trust us on this? What was the threat to the American people? Can we talk about that? Can we have that question? What was this dude doing that warranted that you just go out and murder him? In a country that you're no longer at war with either, by the way. This is the same kind of problems that you gave for bin Salmani. I have a lot of questions about this. A lot of people have other questions about this, but my question is why did you do it? What possible thing did you have to gain from this? Other than to come out and distract from other foreign policy failures that are going on around this world right now. So, that's Biden's speech. Let's talk a bit about this from CNBC. Biden reveals drone strike killed Al-Qaeda leader al-Zawahiri, warns terrorists, "We will take you out." In a country that we're not at war with, that we don't have an active open conflict with, that we have no alliance with right now. President Biden said Monday evening that the U.S. conducted a drone strike that killed Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in Afghanistan, a revelation expected to degrade the terror group's ability to operate. Why? They'll just put another guy in a funny hat, in a robe, into his place. We made it clear again tonight that no matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you're a threat to the people of the U.S., we will find you and we will take you out. Yeah, there's Nala coming in with the actual part of this. They need a win coming into the midterms because they haven't had one for quite a while. But, yeah, that's the speech off of that. We listened to the speech. I criticized it then. Al-Qaeda leader's death leads Rep. Mike Waltz to question why bin Laden's successor was in Kabul. That's another good question, by the way. From Matt Leach and Megan Myers. Now, the official story is that he was with family in Kabul. Details surrounding the U.S.'s killing of Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri raises questions. Rep. Mike Waltz, a former Special Forces officer who served in Afghanistan, told Fox News. The U.S. killed al-Zawahiri in a drone strike in Afghanistan over the weekend, President Biden announced on Monday night. Al-Zawahiri took control over the Al-Qaeda after Osama bin Laden was killed. Number one, what was the leader of Al-Qaeda doing in Kabul? Waltz asked. And from what I'm hearing from a number of folks, both in Afghanistan and in the intelligence community, he's been there for some time. What did the Taliban promise him? Why did he feel so comfortable to really be out in the open? The photo Republican continued, noting that al-Zawahiri has been in hiding for years. Biden, while defending his decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan, said Al-Qaeda was no longer in Afghanistan. Surprise! We went to Afghanistan with the express purpose of getting rid of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. No, you didn't. You went to Afghanistan to nation build. To dump money and political enemies into a country across the world for 20 years. As well as getting rid of Osama bin Laden, Biden said in August 2021. And we did, man. Come on. Biden said in a White House address Monday evening, the U.S. continues to demonstrate our resolve and our capacity to defend the American people against those who seek to do us harm, man. Come on. Waltz also praised the strike. This is just a great day for peace and for freedom and for stability around the world, he told Fox News. But Waltz, a member of the House Armed Services Committee, also questioned whether Taliban was warned of the strike. Did we notify them with the threat of its leaking and him escaping? Waltz said. On the other hand, not notifying the Taliban would threaten this fragile relationship the Biden admin has crafted. Look, again, here's my big question. How do we know this was the leader? I mean, we had bin Laden on the cover of every single magazine, most wanted list. And there are still people out there, and I may or may not be one of them, that don't believe that he was even killed. Because we never saw a body or anything else like that. But now we just randomly, oh hey, we found the leader of Al-Qaeda, who we haven't heard about since Osama bin Laden died, and he just happened to be in Kabul in Afghanistan. And we went out and killed this guy, and his name was al-Zawahiri. That totally sounds Arabic, right? I mean, at this point, especially for fans of the current president, the current administration, who love it when he warmongers, but hate it when a Republican warmongers, you could have come out and said, hey, we killed Ajit Madrors and Mabalzazari and Haidin Dasalami. We killed all those men. They were all top Al-Qaeda leaders. And the people would buy it. Also, terrorism experts are apparently coming into this as well from the Daily Wire. Terrorism experts quickly note major problem as Biden celebrates CIA killing Al-Qaeda leader. From Ryan Saavedra. Terror experts quickly downplayed President Biden's attempts to count the CIA's killing of Al-Qaeda Ayman al-Zawahiri in Afghanistan as a win for his administration, noting the fact that al-Zawahiri was in Afghanistan and it all means that the terrorist group has returned to the country where they planned the 9/11 attacks. During the chaotic pullout from Afghanistan last year, Biden declared that Al-Qaeda was gone from Afghanistan. On Monday night, Biden declared that justice has been delivered and that he would hunt down and kill anyone who is a threat to the U.S. Do keep that in mind before you make that anti-government tweet. However, terrorism and national security experts quickly pumped the brakes on celebrating al-Zawahiri's death as a major win because of what it meant Al-Qaeda is in Afghanistan. The killing of Al-Qaeda emir Ayman al-Zawahiri will be sold as a counterterrorism success, but that narrative masks the undeniable truth that Taliban-controlled Afghanistan is a safe haven for Al-Qaeda. Bill Raggio, terrorism analyst at the Long War Journal, tweeted, "The strike that killed al-Zawahiri is the first since the U.S. withdrawal 1 month ago. The U.S. saved the best for first, made the first counterterrorism strike count." Zawahiri was killed in the Sherpur neighborhood in a home run by deputy of Sirajuddin Haqqani. Sirajuddin, of course, is one of 2 deputy Taliban emirs, as well as the interior minister. He continued, Zawahiri could not operate in Afghanistan, particularly in Kabul, without consent of the Taliban. He wasn't in the remote mountains of Kunar, Nuristan, and Nangarhar, or distant provinces of Ghazni, Helmand, or Kandahar. He was in the Taliban capital. So a number of people have really big questions about this, and I do too. Again, my big question is was this really the leader of the Taliban, or is this going to be like the kid with the water where they just drone bombed somebody and said, hey look, Al-Qaeda leader, and that's going to turn out later that it was nobody that had anything to do with Al-Qaeda. Or the Taliban, or terror groups, or anything else of that matter. Alright, we're going to be talking a little bit more finance here from The Blaze. Fox News anchor corners Manchin with his own words over new spending bill. Why should Americans believe you now? Oh, I don't believe him. And I don't trust him, and I never have. I thought it was really funny to see all the leftoids shriek out over him, but I knew what he was. From Chris Enlow. Fox News anchor Bret Baier confronted Manchin on Sunday for purportedly reneging on his promise to not support legislation that could exacerbate inflation. No, he doesn't care about exacerbating inflation. He just wants to make sure it happens when a Republican is the Speaker of the House. During an interview on Fox News Sunday, Baier reportedly confronted Manchin with his own words, underscoring how the so-called Inflation Reduction Act violates Manchin's past positions. In 2010, for example, Manchin said, I don't think during a time of recession you mess with any of the taxes or increase any taxes. Manchin reiterated those comments from last month. Thus, Bayer told Manchin, now technically we're in a recession, and technically, according to multiple different organizations, this bill does raise taxes, citing analysis from the Tax Foundation and Americans for Tax Reform. Let's listen.
Joining us now, Democratic Senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin. Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Hey, Brett. Brett, thanks for having me. It's always good to be with you.
You know, Senator, I talked to a number of business people over the past few days, and they really wanted to know this. They wanted to know why you changed or evolved your thinking, and why now?
Well, I've never changed or evolved my thinking. I always felt we should be able to fight inflation and try to give relief to people all over America right now with the highest inflation rates they've ever seen. And next of all, we do it by producing. You've got to produce. And if you're going to produce, you have to be able to have more energy so you can get the gas prices down, have more production and more manufacturing so you can get people working and not have layoffs and things of that sort. So it's going to take some investments. I've always looked at that for a balanced approach. I never could get there and didn't think I was going to get there this time. But it all came to fruition and it worked out, and I'm happy it did.
So in 2010, you said this: I don't think during a time of recession you mess with any of the taxes or increase any taxes. This bill does that. But here you are earlier this month.
You can't be raising taxes. You can't make anything inflationary. You can close some loopholes. You can find out where there's some things that should be done that should have been done before, but it won't be inflationary at all.
Now, technically, we're in a recession. And technically, according to multiple different organizations, this bill does raise taxes.
They're wrong. It does not raise taxes, and I've said this before. I said all we did was close loopholes, if you heard. First of all, in 2017, the tax rate, corporate tax rate, was 35%. It went from 35 to 21, 14% reduction, Brett. And when that did, everyone says, oh my goodness, this is tremendous. All we're doing is basically saying the largest corporations in America that have $1 billion of value or greater have to pay a minimum of 15% to help this great country. That's all. I don't think anyone in West Virginia thought that anyone could get by with not paying at least or 21%. So we did not raise taxes. We've closed loopholes. That's all we did. And I made sure there was no tax increases in this whatsoever.
Well, here's the Tax Foundation. They say the proposed 15% minimum tax on corporate book income is the most economically damaging provision in the bill, reducing GDP by 0.1%, costing about 27,000 jobs. Here's Americans for Tax Reform. On the energy portion, the legislation would impose a regressive tax on oil and gas development based upon emission levels of methane during production, leading to higher energy bills for consumers and higher costs of everyday products. Are they wrong?
We've worked with all those industries all the way through this piece of legislation on my side. All of my staff did. And when they're talking about the things they're talking about, that's not true at all. First of all, basically deterring people from making investments. We've had the absolute massive record profits for the last 2 years, and the lowest amount of investment in capitalism as far as capital expenditures. That's because
Oh, look at all those massive profits and the highest profits in years, and labor costs have gone up and everything else that goes along with this here. And you're also measuring, again, your profits in dollars that aren't comparing to dollars that have lost 10% or more over the last 2 years. Manchin was not to be trusted. Manchin was never to be trusted. He's a strategic genius. But he's one that's giving you the hug with a knife in his hand to go put it back in your back. And if that's not going to be enough inflationary and tax increasing spending for you, from Axios, U.S. to send Ukraine additional $550 million in military aid. Gee, I wonder why we're losing so much money here. From Julia Shapiro. The United States will send an additional $550 million in security assistance to Ukraine, National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said on Monday. The latest package, which the Biden admin will authorize later in the day, will include more ammunition for high-mobility artillery rocket systems and 155mm artillery systems, Kirby told reporters at a White House briefing. Hi, government? Can you send me a 155 millimeter artillery system on the taxpayer dime? I would. I think I would make better use of it than the people who launder your money. Mostly because I would use it to keep you off my lawn. With this, the Biden administration will have sent more than $8 billion with a B in security assistance to Ukraine since Russia first invaded its neighbor in late February, Kirby added. Kirby also welcomed the departure of the first ship from the port of Odessa in Ukraine since Russia was blockaded. Since the war began in February, Russia has blockaded Ukraine's ports in the Black Sea, contributing to a global food crisis. We obviously welcome this important step, and we hope to see more ships depart in the coming days to travel onward to world markets with agriculture products, Kirby said. There you go. Another $500 million gone. That we'll never see in this country again. Print another $500 billion. Or $500 million, rather. Well, hell, at this point, just print another $500 billion. What difference is it going to make? It'll just be twisting the knife a little bit further into the American people. From the Daily Wire, Jon Stewart, Jack Posobiec bite and bury the hatchet over vet burn pit relief. From Greg Wilson. Jon Stewart and Jack Posobiec had heated words over a controversial crafted bill that would provide funds for 6 veterans, but managed to hug it out moments later. The former late-night funny man and Navy intelligence officer turned journalist have been sparring on Twitter for days over a bill intended to provide $400 billion for veterans. No, that's not where that $400 billion went. Who suffered a wide range of ailments from exposure to burn pits in Afghanistan and Iraq. Republicans have objected to the bill because they say the House Democrats used the accounting trick that the Congressional Budget Office could add a minimum of $275 billion in unrelated spending over the next decade. When Posobiec and Stewart met up in Washington on Monday, it was on. These people have suffered for 15 years, Stewart shouted at Posobiec, pointing a finger in his face. Posobiec, who stayed calm, asked Stewart why he was attacking him, given that they both unquestionably support health care for veterans. Earmuffs. Because you're an effing troll, yelled back Stewart, who advocated for veterans sickened by burn pits on Capitol Hill. Earmuffs. Because I don't know what's going to be in this video.
Get this path over the line. Because these people have suffered for 15 years. Because you're a fucking
look at them in the
troll.
face. Look at them in
You're
the
a
face.
troll.
I
want the bill You're not in good faith.
I'm for the bill.
You're not in good faith.
So what's the problem? What are
My
you trying to do here?
my question is
What are
to
you trying to
John.
do here? What?
Why is John? I'm not even against you guys.
What are you trying to do
Then
here?
what are you doing? Then
Because
what
I
are
have a
you
question.
Oh, good. I'm sure that Jon Stewart and the veterans around him would let him have the opportunity to talk. Republicans, including Ted Cruz of Texas, have also been making the case that the GOP supports the aid to veterans, but not under the new terms proposed by Democrats. Pat Toomey said Sunday that he would vote for legislation if the gimmick can be cut. He proposed an amendment that would put guardrails on the $400 billion, satisfying GOP concerns and potentially allowing the bill to move forward. What I want to do is treat it for government accounting purposes the way we've always treated it for government accounting purposes, because if we change it to the way the Democrats want it, it creates room in the budgets for $400 billion of totally unrelated extraneous spending on other matters, Toomey said. Alright. Possible earmuffs again.
This is Jack Posobiec. I'm here with Tim Jensen of Grunstyle, and
Hello.
Jon Stewart is also here. Jon Stewart and I have decided to come to agreement. Have we not, John?
Yes, sir.
Our-
I lost my temper a little bit. I felt like I was being trolled.
And I realize that the important thing is you just got to get this done for these guys and get them over the finish line to get the health care they need.
We're at 98%. Let's get it over the last 2%.
Please.
Is that fair?
Fair.
You shake on it.
7-5, brother.
Do or die. This is Jack Posobiec. I'm.
So now they're friends again. The bill would establish a presumption that military service caused 23 respiratory illnesses and cancers related to the smoke from burn pits, fire pits used in war zones to dispose of various types of waste, many of them toxic. Yeah, we saw it in Jarhead. As far as I knew, it was just the pits where they burned their crap. But I guess there were other chemicals in that as well. Some Andrew Yang news. Now, I put this in topic chat in the Discord, and the topic is still live if you guys want to weigh in. Join up the Discord and come back in and tell me what you think about third parties here. But now is not the time. This is a response to John Pavlovitz. I'm dead surprised this came up because I outright told Charm 2008, Miss Robinson, that I was going to use this to excoriate the Dem Party platform. So John Pavlovitz tweets out, Andrew Yang is about Andrew Yang. Which, by the way, every politician is about him or herself. That's not uniquely an Andrew Yang thing. That was true about Trump. That's true about Biden. That's true about Pelosi. Hence what we just spent the beginning of the show talking about. That's true about Schumer, about Manchin, as we can see with some of this stuff. That's true about the Democrats who tried to put spending, extra spending, into the bill. That's true about AOC Biscuit. That's true about Bob Dole, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter. That's true about all of them. This is not uniquely an Andrew Yang thing. And Charm, 2008, assures us now is not the time. With a meme that says, now is not the time for a third party. Start any third party after Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Never forget that ill-timed third parties cause Dems to lose elections. And you'll notice that all of these are talking about Dem elections. No talk about Ross Perot in here. Ralph Nader, 2000, Gore v. Bush. Ralph Nader had nothing to do with that. Bernie Sanders, Gary Johnson, and Jill Stein, all three for Clinton v. Trump 2016. Which shows a massive amount of recency bias, by the way. I've never trusted Andrew Yang. Bullcrap. 2020, POTUS candidate. 2021 mayoral race. 2022 third-party founder. The Supreme Court would be so different today if Al Gore and Hillary Clinton had selected the justices. And this whole now is not the time thing, number one, first and foremost. If you are worried about people that you supposedly have all in lockstep going off to a third party, you don't have the Democratic mandate you think you do. That is the first part of the problem with this. Your agenda right now doesn't appeal to the vast majority of Dem voters. And I've been hearing, this is not a new thing either, the now is not the time. In 2024, in 2026, you'll be saying the same thing. Now is not the time, we're one election away from losing our democracy, which would be the worst thing in the world. Now is not the time! It's never going to be the time. It's never going to be the time. Because we've got so much corporatism up into these parties. A corporation that probably made this meme to try to make sure that they can keep the politicians that they've bought in power for a long time. I would not vote for Andrew Yang. I would not vote for anybody in his party. Because I know that Andrew Yang does whatever it does. Whatever Andrew Yang can do to give Andrew Yang more money and more power. But that doesn't mean that people that believe in his message shouldn't have the option to go and vote for him. However few they are, people should have the option. Let the chips fall where they may. If you don't believe in a candidate or a party, you shouldn't be forced to either sit home or vote for a candidate you don't believe in. There should be 12 parties. All right. Now, to make sure that the black guy didn't have the longest sentence possible, archived from WUSA 9 CBS. Guy Reffitt sentenced to more than 7 years in prison for leading a mob on January 6th. A federal judge denied the DOJ's request to impose a terrorism enhancement on the Texas 3%er convicted of 5 felony counts in March. The 3%ers kind of glow. They don't glow as brightly as the Pride Boys, but they kind of glow. From Jordan Fisher. Guy Reffitt, the Texas 3%er, convicted of being at the front of a pro-Trump mob that overwhelmed police on January 6th, was sentenced on Monday to more than 7 years in prison. In March, a jury convicted Reffitt, 49, of 5 felony counts, finding that he made plans with another militia member to bring weapons and body armor with them to the U.S. Capitol building to disrupt the certification of President Brandon's electoral victory, honk honk. At trial, persecutors played a video showing Reffitt facing off with outnumbered U.S. Capitol Police as they deployed multiple rounds of pepper spray and less than lethal rounds in an attempt to subdue him. Even after they stopped his momentum, persecutors say Reffitt continued waving other rioters that he emboldened as they stormed past police and made the first breach into the Capitol. On Monday, prosecutors told U.S. District Judge Daphne Friedrich that Reffitt's goal on January 6 was bigger than just stopping Congress from counting votes. Oh, really? Whatever did he plan to do? He didn't just want President Trump to remain in office, Assistant U.S. Attorney General Jeffrey Nestler said on Monday. He wanted to physically and literally remove members of Congress from power. We believe he is a domestic terrorist. Persecutors asked Friedrich to impose a terrorism enhancement, the first in any Capitol selfie-fest case to date. Though Reffitt was not convicted of a crime of terrorism, in his sentencing memo, Nestler said the sentencing guidelines allowed for the upward departure in cases like his and argued for 15 years. The evidence at the trial showed Reffitt extensively planned for weeks ahead of January 6 to come to the District of Columbia with specific intent of attacking the Capitol and taking over Congress, Nestler wrote. He recruited Rocky Hardy to join him in December 2020, discussed with Hardy the need to bring multiple firearms, made travel arrangements for 2 of them, and outfitted himself with weapons, body armor, and zip ties. This level of planning is consistent with the application of the terrorism enhancement. Reffitt's attorney, F. Clinton Broden, said in his memo, and in court on Monday, the Justice Department was trying to impose a trial penalty on Reffitt for not taking a plea deal. Yeah, that sounds about right. This is the case where the government has asked for the terrorism enhancement, and this is the only case where the defendant has gone to trial, Broden said. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure this out. So, 7 years. From CNN, January 6 rider who carried a gun to the Capitol and threatened Nancy Pelosi gets more than 7 years. It doesn't look like we've got a lot of new information here, other than some coarse language that will not play well with the AM radio audience that we're trying to snipe from. so we'll hold off on this one. But ABC News has an interesting piece for this. Who should be labeled a terrorist? January 6th sentencing fuels the debate. From Lucien Brueggemann. Well, let's see. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell. Those are people who should be labeled as terrorists. A 49-year-old Texas man was sentenced by a judge to more than 7 years in prison for his role in the Capitol attack, the harshest sentence yet for a January 6 defendant. But legal and national security experts say another decision made by the judge could carry potentially broader implications. In handing down the 87-month sentence to Guy Wesley Reffitt, U.S. District Judge Dabney Friedrich declined to characterize the defendant as a domestic terrorist. Persecutors had sought a 15-year prison term for Reffitt, predicated on the use of an increasingly rare legal tool called the terrorism enhancement, which empowers judges to issue sentences above the federal guidelines for certain crimes. Federal sentencing guidelines in Reffitt's case call for a prison sentence between 9 and 11 years. On Monday, Friedrich brushed aside the government's motion for a terrorism enhancement, citing other January 6-related defendants whose conduct appeared to be more serious than Reffitt's, and for whom the Justice Department chose not to pursue the terrorism enhancement. Experts said Friedrich's decision demonstrates the challenge prosecutors face in meeting the exceptionally high standard to formally label someone a terrorist under the law. Again, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, George W. Bush, Harry Reid, George H.W. Bush, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton. There are people who should be labeled as domestic terrorists. Merrick Garland, there's another one. Bill Barr, there's another one. In the court of common sense, individuals who went into the Capitol to engage in destructive behavior and disrupt lawful government proceedings by staying inside the velvet ropes may have, by definition, committed an act of terrorism, said John Cohen, a former Homeland Security official who is now an ABC News contributor. But the challenge for persecutors is to provide a defendant has met the specific legal elements of a terrorism offense. The terrorism enhancement, codified in Section 3A, 1.4 of the Federal Sentencing Guidelines, traces its roots back to the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, after which Congress enacted tougher penalties to deter acts of intimidation or coercion aimed at the government or civilian population, thus going back on the First Amendment. In the intervening years, terrorism sentences have most frequently been applied to defendants who, with ties to ISIS or Al-Qaeda, or to violent domestic extremists like Cesar Sayak, who pleaded guilty in 2018 to mailing pipe bombs to members of Congress. Yeah, we never heard a word about that, did we? Plant. Alright, what else do we have here? So, we've got one here from Mr. Andy Ngo, speaking of people who should be labeled as terrorists. Court filings reveal new info about Nicholas Roski, the suspect who allegedly took steps to assassinate Judge Kavanaugh. Affidavit says Roski planned to kill 3 judges, and that social media was used in planning. Additionally, Roski is revealed to be trans and goes by the name Sophie. What do you want to bet nobody ever calls for this guy to be named as a terrorist, in spite of the fact that he wanted to go and kill 3 justices to get the court to rule on the side that he wanted it to rule. Let's look at the filings. In reviewing these Discord communications, FBI agents discovered the following exchange, dated May 25th, 2022, between person number 1 and Sophie 42. Roski. Roski, I'm going to try to stop Roe versus Wade from being overturned. Person 1, what you trying to do? Remove some people from the Supreme Court. You gonna run? After, you mean? Person 1, oh ha ha ha, good one. 2 dead judges ain't gonna do nothing. The whole government is effed. There's no fixing that. You would die before you killed them all. Roski says, yeah, but I could get at least one, which would change the votes for decades to come. I'm shooting for 3. I wonder if this person should be considered a domestic terrorist. R/R4R Seattle. American Nick. 24 MTF seeking F Cuddle Buddy, movie buddy. I am a 24-year-old MTF college graduate looking for a woman to cuddle and watch movies with, preferably within 5 years of me, both younger and older. If this turns into making out, that's cool. If not, that's cool too. Mainly I'm looking for someone to be comfortable with. There are very few men I felt comfortable with, even platonically, so that's why I'm specifying. I have an alt style. Work on developing it. Maybe you can help. 420 friendly. I love deep conversations, geeky, introverted. I love all kinds of movies and TV shows, so I'm sure we could find something we would both like. I love to introduce people to movies I like and know they will like. I'm one of those people who are quiet at first and talkative once they feel comfortable. Send me a message if you're interested. I feel like you should have read that with a lisp. There's another one, 25 PST PC, looking for some friends for fun-focused gaming. Hi, my name is Sophie. I play a lot of games on PC from a lot of different genres, and I'm willing to buy others. I will soon have an external hard drive to store tons of games on. Just put something specific. Valheim and Overwatch are my main multiplayer games right now, but it's very open to co-op and multiplayer games. COVID has given me lots of free time, and I'd love to spend it gaming with friends. Also, would love to stream movies together too. I have Discord, but would prefer to get to know you a little first before sharing it. Alright, C. Reddit accounts. Records and information stored at premises owned, maintained, controlled, or operated by Reddit, a company located at 2710 Gateway Oaks Drive, Suite 150N, Sacramento, California, 95833. And associated with following Reddit accounts further described in attachment A3 to search for information further described in attachment B3. The Reddit account associated with the email address redacted mail.com, username American Nick, and user ID TH12V, target Reddit 1. Information specific to this account is set forward in paragraph 9 below. Betcha he doesn't get done as a terrorist. Crispus 2020 says, if I say I'm trans, can I plan stuff too? And E. Spicer, big brain take of the day, no, just tell whenever your name is DJT, then you can apparently plan anything. And which I had to reply and say, where is Donald? Is he in the room with us? Can you hear him? What is he saying? Can he hear us? Josh Womack came back and said, if your name is Trump, you don't even have to plan anything. You'll just be accused of it regardless. So that's interesting. Real men put country over party. Rep Liz Cheney posts photo of actor Kevin Costner wearing I'm for Liz Cheney t-shirt. Rep Liz Cheney of Wyoming, soon to be former Rep Liz Cheney of Wyoming, posted a photo of Yellowstone actor Kevin Costner, sporting a cowboy hat and an I'm for Liz Cheney t-shirt. Real men put country over party, Cheney's post declared. Cheney, an outspoken critic of the former president, was one of the 10 Republicans to vote in favor of impeaching in the wake of the January 6th Capitol selfie fest last year. She's also one of the 2 Republicans serving in the House Select Committee, established to persecute anybody who would disagree with her brand of conservatism. Adam Kinzer, Costner is more of a man than most men, with a t-shirt that says I'm for Liz Cheney. That right there should be your ultimate indication that you should not be for Liz Cheney. So perfect. Hollywood liberals for Liz Cheney. Tim Murtaugh, who previously served as comms director for Trump 2020, tweeted in response to Cheney's post. The fact that you think this helps in Wyoming is just another painful reminder of how out of touch with Wyomingites you really are. Twitchy's Sam Janney commented. That is Politibunny, by the way, for those of you who are not familiar with her. And if you're not, by the way, you should be following her. The fact that you think this helps in Wyoming is just another painful reminder of how out of touch with Wyomingites you really are. 22 points down, Liz. Wyoming over Liz. Trump backed Harriet Hageman in the primary contest, which is slated for August 16th. Trump called Cheney a warmonger, a disloyal Republican, and a rhino, which is an abbreviated term, a form of the pejorative phrase Republican in name only. Cheney said last month that she's not made a choice about whether to mount a 2024 bid, but will make a decision about 2024 down the road. Yeah, that should be your biggest indication right there, not to support Liz Cheney. I'm going to skip the Hill one. Let's do the Newsweek one, though. Is Kevin Costner a Republican? Yellowstone star backs Liz Cheney, from Andrew Stanton. Actor Kevin Costner, the star of the television show Yellowstone, backed Representative Cheney's re-election bid as she faces a challenge from Trump-backed Harriet Hageman. Cheney, a Wyoming Republican, turned on former President Trump by following the January 6th selfie fest. When a mob of supporters came in, stayed inside of the lines, took selfies and posed for photos, from journos, by the way, we've seen that stretch back out, in an effort to tell Congress how they really felt, and has since become one of the fiercest Trump critics in the GOP. Well, soon she's no longer going to be in the GOP. While her stance has earned her support from many moderates and Democrats, who praise her willingness to buck her own party, but have at one point stood shoulder to shoulder with me, protesting her for her warmongering. Just so you know. She found herself at odds with many voters in Wyoming's at-large congressional district in a state that backed Trump by more than 26 points. Trump's massive victory in the state made it the most conservative state in the 2020 presidential election. But on Monday, Cheney revealed the new celebrity endorsement, tweeting a photo of Costner wearing a white t-shirt that read, "I'm for Liz Cheney." Despite his endorsement of Cheney, Costner does not consider himself to be a Republican anymore. Earlier in his life, Costner was considered a Republican, but has supported Democrats since the 90s. In fact, he endorsed Pete Buttplug, then the mayor of South Bend, and now the Secretary of Transportation during the 2020 Democratic primary, later supporting President Brandon's election campaign. Honk honk. "I think we really have to have a president for both sides," he said in a 2020 interview at Variety. "And for the people who didn't vote for Biden, if Biden wins, it's necessary that he addresses what they're concerned about," which he didn't. I think that he has that level of bandwidth to understand that the group that doesn't vote for him needs attention. They have their own concerns, and we have to think about that. Dude, he doesn't have the bandwidth to eat tapioca pudding and a bran muffin at the same time. In a 2020 interview with the Daily Beast, yeah, there's some informative content, Costner said he goes back and forth on his votes and called Trump dangerous. Yeah, he's not a Republican. He goes where the power is. From the Blaze, Ellie Mistal with the wild hair once again. MSDNC guest, Republicans love Negroes like Herschel Walker who do what they're told. Guess what? We can watch it happen. On Saturday, The Nation contributor Allie Mistal asserted on MSDNC's The Cross Connection with Tiffany Cross that Georgia Republicans candidate for Senate, Herschel Walker, was unintelligent and bereft of independent thoughts. The self-professed justice correspondent then proceeded to accuse Republicans of backing Walker because he's going to do what he's told. That's what Republicans want from their Negroes, to do what they're told. Let's listen.
Because Walker has the backing of the Republicans. Now you ask, why are Republicans backing this man who's so clearly unintelligent, who so clearly doesn't have independent thoughts? But that's actually the reason. Walker's going to do what he's told. And that's what Republicans like. That's what Republicans want from their Negroes, to do what they're told. And Walker presents exactly as a person who lacks independent thoughts, lacks an independent agenda, lacks an independent ability to grasp policies, and he's going to be a close election in Georgia because
Dude, you literally do nothing but come back and parrot whatever MSNBC and The Nation tell you to do. I would not sit there and talk about independent thought if it was me in your position, Allie Mistal, because you haven't had one for as long as I've known who you are. You might have had one before this, but you haven't had one for as long as I've known who you are, which has been less than a year. All right, I've got one that was submitted from the Discord here. Then we've got one from the Chicago Times. Then we'll do Twitter trending and head out of here. We're actually almost done already. From Fortune. One of the greatest financial historians alive says central bankers have been incompetent for decades and inflation is our big hangover. From Will Daniel. Oh, I guess this one's paywall. We'll have to do this one tomorrow. Let's put a pin in that. Sorry, confused, Kami. I didn't realize Fortune was a paywalled site. Oh, it's already done. Let's bring this back over here. In the archived version. Who or what is responsible for the rampant inflation plaguing the global economy? President Biden has argued the key culprit is President Putin and his war in Ukraine, and going so far as to call the current rise in U.S. consumer prices Putin's price hike. On the other hand, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says the high inflation is a result of the toxic combination of supply chain issues brought to you by the pandemic, lockdowns in China, the war in Ukraine, and a strong labor market. Ed Chancellor, a financial historian, journalist, and investment strategist who has been described as one of the greatest financial writers of our era, argues central bankers are to blame. In his views, the central bank's unsustainable policies have created an everything bubble, leaving the global economy with an inflation hangover. Chancellor explained his theory, which is presented in his new book, The Price of Time, The Real Story of Interest, in a recent interview with the Market's Mark Ditley. There's always the idea that speculative bubbles are formed around the invention of a new technology, he said. What I'm doing in my book is leaving aside the tech aspects and the psychological aspects of bubbles and concentrating solely on the monetary underpinnings. What I argue is that when interest rates are pushed down too low, people are driven into speculative endeavors and chase returns. Where's the downside to this argument? To understand the Chancellor's argument, we have to take a step back to the years following the Great Financial Crisis. After 2008, inflation in most developed nations was low, and central banks around the world were more concerned with ensuring a global economic recovery and the negative impact of deflation. As a result, interest rates were held at historically low levels, and some central banks, like the U.S. Federal Reserve and the Bank of Japan, instituted a controversial policy called quantitative easing, which involves buying government bonds and mortgage-backed securities in hopes of increasing the money supply and spurring lending and investment. Chancellor explained how during the first 3 rounds of quantitative easing, the money the Fed created never fed through the real economy, leading the central bankers to ignore inflation and become complacent. When the pinko pox pandemic hit, however, and quantitative easing was ramped up again, it was a different story. Central banks around the world cut interest rates and printed collectively around $8 trillion. The issue at the time was the money was used to finance roughly the same amount of government spending, which contributed to the largest peacetime deficits in history. On top of that, near zero interest rates and excess liquidity from the financial system encouraged investors to buy risky assets, creating an everything bubble as evidenced by the extreme rise in tech stocks, cryptos, meme stocks, and even collectibles like baseball cards in 2020 and 2021. And surprise, surprise, we now have a rising and unstable inflation, Chancellor said. We're now waking up to a big hangover from this monetary extremism. Chancellor argues the central bankers believed they could maintain near zero interest rates for the quantitative easing without causing a rise in consumer prices because inflation had remained so low for so long. I disagree with this strongly. And I can understand where something like this would come from somebody whose online screen name is Confused Commie. The basis of Edward Chancellor's argument is that inflation is caused by you buying a house or starting a business, by you financing something else or financing somebody else's business, by your money and the ability to either borrow or earn money being high. That is not the root cause of the inflation, but it is the cause of inflation that our Federal Reserve seeks to try to curb. Near zero interest rates should be the norm. They should be. What should be done with this is instead, the government should have a complete freeze spending pause for 5 years. Let everybody burn through whatever they've already got set aside and allotted for welfare, for federal aid, for state aid, etc. Let it all get burned through and let everybody else come back and look at this and say, well, we're kind of screwed. So we might have to go back out and produce something. We might have to urge a state or somebody to produce something. It'll make a massive reassess on who is really the needy and who is gaming the system. But even if we can't go down to that extreme, to just stop a lot of the foreign aid and a lot of the military spending and a lot of the foreign wars going onto a credit card would do a massive step to eliminating a lot of this inflation. This is not an inflation hangover. This is another big government person trying to say, you don't belong in the market, only the billionaires who pay us belong in the market. But I'm glad I read this. Alright, and the last one from the Chicago Tribune. North Shore agrees to pay $10.3 million settlement in COVID vaccine lawsuit over religious exemptions. From Lisa Schenker. North Shore University Health Systems has agreed to pay $10.3 million to settle a lawsuit brought by employees who alleged the hospital system wouldn't let them keep their jobs after they objected to getting the vaccines for religious reasons. 14 workers, including nurses, a pharmacy tech, and a senior application analyst, all named anonymous in the lawsuit, sued North Shore in October, alleging that North Shore refused to grant them true exemptions from the mandate that all its workers get vaccinated. North Shore is not admitting to any wrongdoing as part of the proposed settlement agreement, which was filed Friday in the U.S. District Court for Northern District of Illinois. The agreement must still be approved by a judge. As part of the settlement, North Shore is agreeing to rehire workers who are fired for refusing to get the jab for religious reasons. Why would you go back? They're going to just find another reason to get rid of you. Take their money and run. Move out of North Shore's district. Move to Wisconsin, or Indiana, or Michigan, And go find a hospital that's not going to force you to do this. North Shore, like other hospital systems, will still require its workers to get vaccinated, but as part of the settlement, it's changing its exemption policy moving forward. It will review individual workers' requests for religious exemptions, and if those exemptions are approved, North Shore will work to accommodate them regardless of their positions. I agree with this. This is good. You had a determination that you had no reason to do, and yet they came out and they did it. Because reasons. Good. And that's my only last piece of advice. Oh, North Shore's agreed to rehire them. Don't go back to North Shore. Take that money, whatever you got, sell your house, end your lease, pay out your lease, whichever way you go. $10.3 million over 14 people. You're probably going to walk out with a pretty good chunk of money. And go buy a house in a free state. Get the hell out of Illinois. All right, we are done. But before we go, the last thing we're going to do is go check in and see what the Twitter trending is for the day. Some of the stuff I'm probably not going to know because a lot of it's probably going to be K-pop. We do this every Tuesday, but we skip the Tuesday Motivation Tuesday vibes. And instead take the top 5 trends that are not involving those. And the number 1 trend, of course, given what we're thinking about right now, and also the fact that people are talking about Taipei, World War III, etc., is Taiwan. U.S. News and China address tensions ahead of Pelosi's expected Taiwan visit. China says its communications with the U.S. over Pelosi's expected Taiwan visit. A map of West Taiwan. It's correct. Japanese and Taiwanese media reporting 8 F-15 fighters and 5 tanker aircraft just took off from Okinawa. Only 385 NM from Taiwan. Pelosi should tell Xi to back off Taiwan or she's going to walk around Beijing topless. Oh! That might work. Disclosed now, Taiwan's tallest building in Taipei. Speaker Pelosi, welcome to Taiwan. So, we'll see what happens with that. Second one, Wordle 409X. Might melt like butter. Got it. In his 6th try. Harris Jamil got it. In the 4th try. But Grant Shimon didn't get it at all. It might have just been because of the degradation from those 3 jabs. Heather Wyatt missed it. Eileen Hoffman missed it. Andy Cohen missed it. Kent Fast, sorry.
Let's go.
First fail since I started having a drink every row. Look at the last row. What happened? But Ash got it. So, looks like this was a hard one again. Oh, Susan got it too. So, a whole lot of fails and only a couple of wins. Number 3. Blueface. Blueface gets in bizarre fight with woman in Hollywood caught on video. It's Christian Malone from Baddie South and the Zeus Network. Oh, you know we're gonna watch this.
What? I know, bro. You all right, dude? Bro, that's not good, bro. Damn, dude. Bro.
Let me go.
Damn, bro.
Keep following me.
Damn. Welcome to Hollywood.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Just take it easy. Oh, shit. That was bad. Oh, that was bad. That was bad. Damn, dude. Damn, yo. Damn. Yo, you guys just dropped the phone? You just dropped the phone? Yo, you just dropped the phone? Yo, why are you hitting that man? Yo, he's not doing nothing to you. Why are you hitting that man? We're just trying to do a little IRL here, guys. I just walked out the house, dog. It's just a little dramatic.
Yeah, I'm guessing some sort of drugs or alcohol involved in this. This is, I mean, we've got blows being thrown, but not a huge lot of things. But I don't know who either of these people are either. Don't laugh at Blueface and Christian. That's the type of obsession people end up dead over. No idea. Anybody? Can anybody help me with that? Who are these people? Why should I care? Alright, next one. Yeezy Day! Yeezy Day 2022 just got expanded. Most of Yeezy 21-22 release cycle is back-end loaded. The swoosh better take notes and come correct with some crazy restocks for this upcoming Nike event. So, unfortunately for Kanye, I don't do Nike, so I will not be participating in this. I don't really understand the shoe obsession either, but, you know, I wear boots because they work. That looks horrendously uncomfortable. But apparently if you want Yeezy stuff, it's coming out. Like today. So, I won't be. but if you want it, it's coming. And the last one, of course, it's a Tuesday, which means in this season, it's election day. KMOV telling us the polls are open. That's right, Missouri and I believe Ohio both have primaries today. Vote Republican. They may not be perfect, but the other side is insane. Pocho has a big lead over Zeldin, but governance survey tight in suburbs upstate. So if you are in the states of Missouri or Ohio, make sure you get out to the polls if you want to see a change. If you'd like to be complicit and not participate, or anarchist and don't believe it does anything, I understand and respect that too. But if this is something that is important to you, make sure that you get out. Today is your day to name your primary challengers and see who's going to go head to head in November. I like this one. The only reason I voted for Biden was to vote against Trump. Makes sense. I didn't want a headache, so I amputated my head. Oh, we've got more than just Ohio and Missouri. Today, August 2nd, is Election Day in Arizona, Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, Ohio, and Washington. She tweets from antagonizing China an hour ago. Make good choices! So, that's what we see for that. And with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. Ugliest Crocs ever. Easy day, Blueface, ignorance is bliss. Yeah, I don't know who Blueface is. I think we're done. I think we are done. I think we're finished. So, thank you everybody who came by and hung out and chatted in the live chat. Everybody who came by and got your opinions heard. We saw some new faces here. Hope you guys liked what you saw and stuck around. We will be reading your name on Friday, so do not fret. Your chats will be read. I do go back and address chat after the fact. I do go back and read that, so that's what we see off of that. Otherwise, come back here tomorrow morning for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And do make sure you get more comments in, because we even read some of the chat on Fridays as well. So come back and stick for that. If you like what you see and you want to continue the discussion, go join the Discord. We've got some, we've got a couple links over there if you want to come back and help contribute to the show in a more personal manner. Let me know. The information is out there. Otherwise, come back here, because the most important thing that you can do is both view the show and tell friends about the show. So, we will see you here next time on Contemporary for more news, more headlines, and more information of the day. Hope you make good choices if you're in the states that are up under voting. And we will see you next time on Contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.